Over to you, Scott. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Right, so welcome and thank you for joining us. Special thank you to all the speakers who have made time to be here with us today, and to the Body Shop for their fantastic support of the Youth Advisory Panel and International Day of the Girl. The first International Day of the Girl was on the 11th of October 2012. Day offers the opportunity to highlight the barriers girls face all over the world in fulfilling their rights and achieving their potential simply for being girls. This year, Plan International is focusing its attention on girls' freedom online and shining light on the abuse and harassment girls face in the online space. This year, we are taking the opportunity to call on social media companies, governments, and individuals to put an end to the abuse that girls endure and empower them to be online in all their diversity. The issue of girls' freedom online is something that affects girls across the world, from girls in developing countries to girls living through humanitarian crises to girls in Ireland. Therefore, we need a global, whole of society approach to tackling the issue. My name is Scott Byrne. I've been a member of the Youth Advisory Panel for the last 2 years. Initially, I became involved with Plan Ireland because I was passionate about equality for all young people on the island of Ireland. Looking at the topic of this year's International Day of the Girl, online harassment, I think there's a real need for male allies. Growing up, I've seen and heard a lot of behaviours that help to contribute towards the harassment that women face daily on the internet. So to launch today's report, I'm hoping that we will be able to start a conversation with young men about how we articulate ourselves in those spaces and put an end to the abuse that women face daily. And with that, I'll carry on. 2020 is a year of particular significance for International Day of the Girl and gender equality. It's 25 years since the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action was finalized. The global blueprint for advancing the rights and empowerment of young women and girls everywhere. It's 5 years since the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development was agreed upon. We're also living through an experience that most of us never imagined we would see in our lifetimes, the coronavirus pandemic. However, as with all crises, the most impacted are those who are already the most vulnerable. Girls are at more risk than ever of abuse, exploitation, and harm. Unless we see radical and decisive action at all levels, we risk reversing much of the progress made on gender equality. Today, we'll explore the issue of gender equality and gender-based violence at the global level, Plan International's role in realising the rights of children and equality for girls in particular, and we will take a deep dive into the issue of online freedom and what actions must be taken to protect girls and young women from harassment and abuse in the online space. So I'll introduce our first speaker. So without further ado, I will ask Minister for State for Overseas Development Aid and Diaspora, Colm Brophy, to deliver opening remarks. Unfortunately, Minister Brophy couldn't be here in person, so he's recorded his statement. So, Colm Brophy was Minister of State with responsibility for Overseas Development Aid and Diaspora on July 2nd, 2020. He is a Fine Gael TD representing Dublin South West. He was first elected to the Dáil in 2016. He was also a member of the Joint Committee on Justice and Equality and the Joint Committee on European Union Affairs. Colm was a member of South Dublin County Council from 2008 to 2016 and is a former member of the board of the Housing Finance Agency. We are delighted that he can be here with us today. We seem to be having some issues with the sound on Minister Brophy's video, so we may come back to that at a later point. So I will introduce our next speaker. So Laura Whitmore has been a supporter of Plan International since 2009 when a brochure about the Because I Am a Girl campaign was handed to her in an MTV studio. Referred to a report about 62 million girls around the world were out of school. Something struck Laura that day, how fair it was that girls would be denied an education simply for being girls. That month, Laura started sponsoring a little girl called Ariel Joy, living on Darum Island in the Philippines. They exchanged letters before Laura traveled to visit Ariel and her family in 2015. Laura is best known for her work as a radio presenter and as a TV presenter and radio DJ, or as she says in her Twitter bio, you may simply know her as "You're One Off the Telly." Alongside this, Laura is deeply committed to equality and social justice, and regularly platforms and gives voice to issues that tend to be ignored. Laura understands more than most the real-life consequences that online abuse and harassment has for those who are at the receiving end of it. Removing tribute earlier this year to her friend Caroline Flack called out anyone who has ever torn down other people on social media to feel good about themselves, and all those who pit women against each other online for clickbait. Laura herself has faced sustained abuse and harassment on social media platforms and has called on people to show kindness and hold themselves accountable for what they put on social media. We are so grateful to hear from Laura Whitmore this morning.
And I'm an ambassador for Plan International. And being a girl is great and worthy of lots of celebrations. But in all honesty, it comes with its challenges. And today I want to shine a light on one of those challenges. I want to shine a spotlight on the harassment and abuse many girls and young women face on social media today. So as part of the Free to Be Online report, Plan International spoke to 14,000 girls in 31 countries all around the world, and more than half have admitted to being harassed and abused on social platforms. Online violence is a serious issue. It causes real and substantial harm to those who experience it, and it's silencing girls' voices, and it can't go unaddressed. Since the offset of the coronavirus pandemic, our lives are more online than they have ever been, whether we want it to be or not. And for girls and young women in particular, this poses a real risk to their safety and well-being. Abusers, harassers and exploiters have been taking advantage of the situation to target girls and young women. And the online space is not always a safe space. Many girls are physically threatened or sexually harassed, body shamed and racially abused. And this abuse and harassment seems to get worse when they try to raise their voice and express their own opinions. And girls in all their diversity need to know that when they are abused and threatened online, that they can report it, that they will be listened to, and that action will be taken. Because right now, too often, they're met with silence. Those who hurl abuse, harassment, and threats online must be held accountable for their actions. They also need to take personal responsibility and consider the potential impact of their words towards the person they are directing them to. This International Day of the Girl, we are going to take the opportunity to raise our voices in unison, because we're much louder that way, and appeal to all those who can make the online space a safe and empowering place for girls and women to do so. Because we all have a responsibility. Every one of us has a role to play in preventing and responding to the scourge of online abuse. And this includes governments, yes, they have a responsibility, media outlets, families, communities, friends, you, me. Social media companies have an enormous power and potential to stop this. The more power you have, the more responsibility. So while Plan International carried out research with these 14,000 girls all across these 31 countries, the Youth Advisory Panel of Plan International Ireland carried out similar research within Ireland with 457 girls and young women to complement and supplement the global findings. And Unsurprisingly, the findings of both reports paint a pretty bleak picture of girls' experiences online. The majority of respondents had experienced online harassment, 58% at the global level, and in Ireland, 67%. The repercussions are pretty clear in these findings. And also, 1/4 respondents in both the global report and in Ireland said they felt physically unsafe. I mean, this is far greater than something that you can just brush off. In the global report, 42% lost self-esteem or self-confidence. That figure is much higher in Ireland at 75%. Half of girls in the global report said they face more online harassment than street harassment, and previously street harassment was the predominant location for harassment for girls and women. In Ireland, 90% of respondents felt equally as likely or else more likely to be harassed online. And this shows that those who perpetrate this abuse have found new ways to invade the homes, the bedroom, the minds of girls and women. And younger girls, they're not safe from this either. The global report states that online harassment for girls start at the shocking age of 8 years old. Girls report that social media harassment is at its peak between the ages of 14 to 16, and the reality is that perpetrators prey on the vulnerabilities of younger girls. In Ireland, the average age of this abuse starts between 13 and 14. Perpetrators will find any reason to harass, bully and shame girls and women online. It can be anything. In Ireland, most girls listed the following abusive experiences: stalking, body shaming, purposeful embarrassment, generally abusive and insulting language, anti-LGBTQ comments, racist comments, sexual harassment, threats of physical and sexual violence. At the global level, 37% of those harassed who identified as being from an ethnic minority said that they were abused because of their ethnicity or race. And the Irish survey also found that over 3/4 felt targeted because of their style, their appearance, just how they looked. What these findings show is that perpetrators of abuse and harassment online will basically find any reason to target girls and young women online. The effects of online harassment and abuse are far-reaching. They can impact mental health, confidence, self-esteem, relationships. And I suppose the question is, who are these perpetrators? Who are these trolls online? How do we stop them? And the findings show that there's no typical profile. Over half of the Irish survey respondents said that anonymous social media users and strangers were responsible. So how do you stop people you don't know? Then on the other side, many said they were also known to those they harass. Majority of girls actually said that their so-called friends or others known to them were responsible, meaning that sometimes people say things without realizing the damage that they're causing. There was one girl in the report, she said a guy tried to text her and then asked her for pics, and when she said no, like certain kind of pictures, and when she said no, he then called her a slut and then he started shaming her. And when you hear this story, you kind of think it's not a rarity. We've probably heard it before. What do you do? How do girls react to this abuse and harassment? While most respondents to the Irish survey said that they report the harasser or make their accounts private, this doesn't necessarily negate or lessen the harassment, nor prevent it from happening again. In the global report, around 20% of girls were driven off social media entirely or reduced their use, and 10% changed how they expressed themselves. And this was similar in the Irish survey. This abuse must neither be viewed as acceptable or inevitable. I feel we are told to grow a thick skin, or that abuse like this is something we should just accept or ignore. But girls and women must be free to express themselves and be themselves in all their diversity and complexities online without fearing for their physical and emotional safety and well-being. As I said earlier, power holders play a key role. Social media companies need to take action and create stronger and more effective reporting mechanisms to deal with online gender-based violence and hold perpetrators accountable. Governments must also take action to prevent and respond to this form of gender-based violence. Bystanders need to intervene online and call out abuse. If you see it, report it and support the harassed. I work in an industry where harassment is common. If you're on the telly, it's almost expected to be part of the territory. I've been told that before. It's part of the territory, but it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be acceptable for anyone, no matter who you are, what you do, where you live, what school you go to. Your words have power, so use them wisely. And each time a woman stands up for herself, she stands up for all women. Happy Day of the Girl.
So thank you for Laura Whitmore for that very powerful video. We're now going to try and go back to Minister Brophy's video. So I advise everyone to just keep your volume up as high as you can, just to make sure everyone can hear it.
Good morning, everyone. Dia Ver Fad. Sincere thanks to Plan International Ireland for inviting me to speak, and apologies for not being with you in person. Plan Ireland is a long-standing strategic partner of my department and the Irish Aid Programme. I'm very pleased that they've given me this opportunity to speak about one of our priorities, which is the promotion of gender equality. Gender equality is a core priority for Irish Aid in our work to help build a more equal, peaceful, sustainable world, a better world. Gender equality is both a fundamental human right and it's also a necessary requirement for sustainable development. This is reflected in the policies and practices throughout the Irish Aid Programme and indeed Ireland's wider foreign policy. Evidence shows that investing in women and girls is transformational, resulting in improved lives for them and also for boys and men. There are still many barriers to women and girls attaining their rights and fully participating in society as equal, active and leading citizens. We know that education can play a major part in changing this. Education enables girls and women to take greater control of their lives, to participate in decision-making processes and reach their full potential. And there is an overwhelming evidence that educating girls transforms lives and entire societies. There has been significant progress globally with getting girls into primary school, but less progress with girls completing secondary education. This is why in February of this year, Ireland organised a special meeting at the United Nations on how to get all adolescent girls into school and learning in supportive, safe and healthy environments. This global call to action, the Drive for 5, calls on all governments and stakeholders to commit to 5 transformative actions. These actions address access to free education, supportive schools and curriculums, ensuring girls are safe from violence and keeping girls healthy and in school. Through Irish Aid's partnership with the developing country governments, civil society, UN and other multilateral organisations, we are supporting countries to deliver these transformative actions. For example, in Zambia and Malawi, Ireland supports the Campaign for Female Education to help vulnerable girls to complete secondary education by providing financial support and mentoring. Ireland's 24 million contribution to the Global Partnership for Education Fund has supported education services in over 65 countries. This has helped to ensure that education systems promote gender equality and girls' education. A key challenge is tackling school-related gender-based violence. Every year, an estimated 246 million girls and boys are victims of violent harassment or abuse in and around the school. Every year. Violence and harassment are significant barriers to girls attending school and their ability to learn. Ending violence in schools, creating safe learning environments and ensuring girls' safety as they travel to and from school is essential for adolescent girls to succeed in education. As we have all seen, the COVID-19 pandemic has interrupted formal education across the globe. It has also had a particularly acute impact on women and girls as incidents of gender-based domestic violence have increased. This is why Irish Aid is prioritising gender equality in our international COVID-19 response. The COVID-19 crisis has exposed inequalities in access to distance learning technologies, particularly the digital divide within countries and the gender digital divide. I welcome the work that Plan International has done in preparing this report, free to be online. The report contains evidence of how the most significant technological advances are impacting on girls around the world, including here in Ireland. The report shows us that girls often struggle to afford digital devices and are less likely to be online than boys. Where girls have access to the internet or mobile devices, we see from the Free to be Online report that they face significant risk of encountering abuse, harassment, and the threats of violence, causing real harm and real pain. With our growing reliance on technology, especially in this global pandemic, we recognise the urgency of ensuring girls can access the internet and do so safely. This year, we're marking the 25th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. The Generation Equality Campaign is bringing together the next generation of women's rights activists to tackle the unfinished business of empowering women and girls. Ireland is working with partners like Plan International to ensure that girls' rights and girls' voices are central in the generation equality agenda, with the emphasis on adolescent girls' education as a catalyst to achieve gender equality. I congratulate Plan International Ireland on all the important work that they are doing to support girls both in Ireland and around the world. Finally, I want to highlight the work of Plan's Youth Advisory Panel members who are here today, who are representing girls' voices, and it is important for advocates and policymakers to hear directly from young women themselves about the issues that affect them. I will close with a proverb that we have been reminded of much in recent years as we celebrate Ireland's decade of centenaries, which is Ní siar sigur suas na mán, no freedom without the freedom for women. Go raibh maith agaibh.
So thank you to Minister Brophy for that address. I'd like to introduce our next panelist now. So Conor Faughnan is one of Ireland's best-known media commentators as his role as spokesman for AA Ireland. Conor joined the Plan International Ireland board in December 2013. He was elected chair of the board in September 2020. Conor is passionate about the work that is carried out by Plan International and is proud to be involved within the organisation. Thank you for joining us this morning, Conor.
Thank you, Scott, and good morning, everybody. I'm delighted to be here. It's a real pleasure and honour to be here as chair of Plan Ireland, so representing the board and the people in the office who work so hard for Plan Ireland. A big thank you to those people for organising today, for Minister of State Colm Brophy for his kind words, Laura Whitmore, who I thought was great in her piece, and particularly the Youth Advisory Panel, Scott and colleagues who put so much time and effort into the campaign, and all of the supporters who've joined us here today, including our core donor Irish Aid, who support our work. You're all very welcome and thank you for coming. For those of you who are less familiar with this, Plan International is one of the world's oldest and largest development organisations, founded during the Spanish Civil War in 1937. Across the world, we work in over 70 countries with thousands of communities and millions of people to end poverty in developing countries in Africa, Asia, and the Americas. Our ambition is simple. We strive for a just world that advances children's rights and equality for girls. Through our work, we empower children, young people, and communities to make the changes needed to tackle the root causes of discrimination against girls, exclusion, and vulnerability. We also advocate for policy change that will allow children to fulfill their rights and achieve their potential. Plan International is also on the coalface of preventing and responding to crises in vulnerable communities. Ultimately, we want to see girls all over the world empowered to learn, lead, decide, and thrive in all aspects of their lives. Plan International Ireland focuses our programmatic work in some of the poorest regions and countries of the world, particularly in West and Central Africa. Working with communities and partners on the ground, these are places where we can truly add value and make a real difference to the lives of children. Alongside our work in development contexts, our team also has extensive expertise in responding to emergencies and humanitarian crises. When a crisis or conflict strikes, our priorities are the provision of education and child protection. However, we also work with local partners to meet people's needs and provide practical support. There are a number of reasons why we prioritise equality for girls in our work across the world. Minister Brophy just said it. There's abundant evidence that when you help girls, you help communities, you help nations. In comparison to their male counterparts, girls are much more likely to face exclusion, violence, exploitation, and harmful practices simply because they're girls. Inequality for girls is primarily driven by harmful social norms and customs that rob girls of their rights and prevent them from reaching their potential. To give some example, 12 million girls marry before the age of 18 every year. That's 1 every 2 seconds. This is despite the practice being prohibited under international law. Unfortunately, factors like poverty, lack of education, the perception that girls make obedient wives, the practice persists. Child marriage snatches girls' childhoods from them, takes them out of education, and leaves them at severe risk of extreme physical, sexual, and psychological harm. Plan International works with communities to prevent child marriage from happening and keep girls in education where they belong. Another pervasive and harmful practice, an absolute violation of the rights, dignity, and bodily autonomy of girls, is female genital mutilation, or FGM. At least 200 million girls and women alive today have undergone some form of FGM. The fundamental reason this practice continues is, again, gender inequality. Girls are perceived as needing to be saved for marriage. It's an attempt to control their sexuality, and it's still seen in many places as a coming-of-age ritual for girls. Plan International works with communities across countries where the practice continues to end female genital mutilation. Now, one of the reasons why we focus so much on education for children and girls in particular is that it can be such an effective tool for keeping girls safe and for preventing gender-based violence through their lives. When a crisis or conflict strikes, social infrastructure and support networks collapse, meaning girls end up even more vulnerable to harmful practices that curtail their rights and their potential. Coronavirus represents a real risk to all of us, but particularly to girls and women who are already in precarious and vulnerable situations. Those of us who fight to uphold the rights of girls across the globe are gravely concerned about the potential rollback in hard-won rights and gains made in gender equality in recent years. According to a Plan International report, The Plan for Girls, over 743 million girls have been out of education due to the pandemic. This has a knock-on effect on the girls' future development and economic prospects. And additionally, girls who are out of education are 3 times more likely to end up married as children. We've already heard extensively about the shadow pandemic that's occurring here in Ireland and across the world. 31 million more women and children than usual are at risk of violence. We need to see decisive and radical action by decision makers to mitigate the gendered impact of the pandemic. Actions that will prevent gender-based violence, get girls back into education, strengthen social security and economic protection, protect girls' sexual and reproductive health and rights, and support girls' agency and voice. Now, today, the issue that we highlight is online gender-based violence. The core issue that we're here to talk about today, the harassment, abuse, and exploitation experienced by over half the girls surveyed globally and 2/3 of the girls surveyed here in Ireland. Abusers, harassers, and exploiters no longer need to be in the physical presence of girls to harm them. They've made their way into the girls' homes, bedrooms, and minds via technology. Online abuse and harassment is a real form of gender-based violence that is having a serious impact on the health, safety, and well-being of girls across the world. The issue is one that transcends social, political, cultural, and geographical divides. Over 14,000 girls of diverse backgrounds and identities were surveyed by Plan International across 22 countries. While the theme of freedom online is looking largely at the abuse and harassment faced by girls online, it also touches on the reality that in many parts of the world, there's a disparity in actual access to the internet, with lower rates of female internet use and more notable in countries in the global south. Overall, the percentage of girls surveyed who use social media in the global report was at 98%, with the majority posting either frequently or very frequently. This gives us a very clear indication of the importance of social media in the lives of girls. Overall, the harassment and abuse experienced by girls online falls into two distinct categories: harassment for simply being female and being online, and a heightened level of harassment for using social media as a platform to express their opinions and to speak out. In addition, the research tells us that those who are from an ethnic or racial minority, LGBTQ groups, and girls with disabilities were at additional risk of abuse and harassment based on these intersecting factors. Girls are on social media platforms because they want to be there, and the experience can be a largely positive one when girls are protected from abuse and exploitation. But right now, the protective structures that need to be in place on social media platforms to prevent the issue from occurring and responding to it when it happens simply aren't there. Furthermore, COVID-19 has made the situation even worse for girls and women online. Since the outbreak of the pandemic, being online is becoming increasingly important for most of us. It served as a lifeline for those who are isolated at home. It's been a way to keep up with developments and means for many young people to keep up with their education. Hannah Al-Rashid, an Indonesian activist quoted in the global Free to Be Online report, said that she noticed an increased level of nastiness online since the pandemic started. Even more sinister than this, Interpol recently sounded the alarm on an increase in the grooming and sexual exploitation of children online. Children are indeed spending more time online, as are paedophiles and exploiters, knowing that often children are unsupervised online and they can go largely undetected on social media sites. The grim reality is that already most vulnerable and marginalized girls will be at increased risk of exploitation and grooming. Girls are also being sent explicit material and asked for the same in return. A girl who was interviewed for the Irish report said that she was called a slut when she refused the request of a male who had requested she send him pictures of herself. And girls do not believe the structures and policies are in place to protect them on social media. Many will try to police their own behavior, increase their privacy settings, or leave a site, strategies that don't necessarily succeed. While they will report and block those who abuse them, the perpetrators can circumnavigate that very easily. Any potential suspension, they can create a new account and carry on. Online abuse and harassment of girls is a form of gender-based violence with grave implications, and it can be just as severe as the more obvious harassment and abuse that young women can experience in public. As the global report emphasizes, the answer to the question, where do girls feel safe, could be answered in one word: nowhere. Girls feel threatened and unsafe when enduring street harassment, and the same occurs when they go online. The sheer anonymity and impunity that abusers enjoy online often emboldens them and makes the behaviors worse. So at the moment, it's very clear that not enough is being done to protect girls and young women online. Girls who participated in the global survey believe that social media companies should be first in line in taking action, with governments coming second. That's a more positive message, I think, and it does mean that there are things we can do. We can speak out, we can call for action. Education and awareness was also flagged as a priority, as was the eradication of harmful gender norms in our society that render girls and young women more vulnerable to gender-based violence in the first place. But social media companies must create more effective, more accessible, and stronger reporting mechanisms specific to online violence. These must hold perpetrators to account and take into account the specific needs and experience of girls in all their diversity. They really should be working with girls and with young women to co-create policies that will best tackle the issue. Moreover, content moderation has to be strengthened and improved to ensure that incidences of gender-based violence are responded to appropriately and quickly. Here in Ireland, global tech giants, Facebook, Twitter, Google, and TikTok all have offices, headquarters, thousands of staff. They undoubtedly have the capacity to make some of the changes that are needed and to accelerate progress on a global level. Fundamentally, these social media companies have a responsibility to protect those who use their platforms and respond appropriately when issues of online gender-based violence arise. And that's why we're calling on you to join us in signing the open letter to social media companies to improve their policies. We also want to extend our call to action to government, as it's a clear need for laws and policies that deal effectively with online abuse and with the harassment of girls. The time to act is now. On behalf of Plan International Ireland, once again, we thank you for being here with us today, and we hope that you will join us in raising our voices for a better future for girls in all of their diversity. Thank you.
Thank you, Conor, for articulating what today is all about. So I'm going to introduce our next two speakers. So Manre McCarthy. Manre has over 20 years of experience working in the development and humanitarian sectors. She started her career in Senegal, working with a national women's organization. She worked for Plan International Ireland from 2016 to 2019, overseeing the humanitarian program portfolio. She moved to Nigeria to join the West and Central Africa team as a regional Lake Chad program manager. The protracted crisis in the region has left 10.8 million people in need of humanitarian assistance and over 2 million people displaced, half of whom are children. The complex issues facing girls and women in this region are many, including many forms of gender-based violence, including early and forced marriage, and a lack of education opportunities. More than 6,000 children, more than 50% of whom are girls, are estimated to have been associated with armed groups, abducted, killed, or victims of violent attacks by armed groups since the beginning of the conflict. Anne-Marie is joined by our colleague, Manre Chirtau. Manre has over 13 years experience working mostly in the development sector. She started her career in a national youth organization where she led the capacity building of other youth organizations, youth-focused institutions and communities to enable them to better serve children and young people. She also advocated for policy change in youth sexual reproductive health and rights issues at the national and international level. Prior to joining Plan International, she spent 2 years supporting the development of digital products that provide adolescent girls with safe, educated, and positive experiences online. She is currently the Youth Engagement and Consultation Advisor for the Lake Chad program in Abuja, Nigeria.
Okay, over to me. Thank you. So yes, good morning, everybody. As Scott said, my name is Anne-Marie McCarthy. I'm the Regional Lake Chad Program Manager for Plan International based here in Abuja. So the Lake Chad program was established in order to address the crisis in the Lake Chad Basin, looking at an integrated and regional program approach. And we have a joint initiative between the country offices from Plan in Nigeria, in Cameroon and Niger. And we have staff in the Lake Chad unit based across the 3 countries. And as we were saying earlier, we have the publication of the global report on freedom to be online. So, and here in Nigeria, there was some consultation with some young women from here. So what we're going to talk about today, I think it only serves to reinforce the global findings in the global report. I'm going to start off by presenting a little bit of the context here in Nigeria, and Manre is going to talk a little bit more about the issues facing girls as they try to move online. So I don't know how much everybody knows about Nigeria, but I do have a few pieces of information and statistics to share with you about this great country. So Nigeria, it's one of the largest and youngest countries in the world. Approximately 63% of the population are under 24. And this is out of an estimated population of 200 million. Nigeria's children and young people, they have many challenges. There are child protection issues, poor education and health services, and there really aren't enough opportunities for girls to be able to drive change and have a voice. Nigeria is also characterized by low participation of youth in the labor force, and youth unemployment is currently it's very high, around 35% in general, but over 40% for women. And there's a real issue for women and young people in general as they struggle to find work. Given the country's high population growth and poor rural and social development, all of these have contributed to rapid urbanization and along with rural poverty and exclusion. And it's also currently there's an estimated 51% of Nigeria's populations live in urban areas. Also, Conor mentioned earlier the numbers of girls who were married, like the number of young girls who were married. Here in Nigeria, the statistics show about 20% of girls married by their 15th birthday and nearly 45% before they're 18. And I guess then also, sorry for all the statistics, but I think it's important to set the scene, to look to see how girls are able to engage in public spaces in general, but more importantly, how they can engage with the online spaces. So yeah, the last two statistics, 60% of out of school children in Nigeria are girls. And actually the one that I find, honestly, of all of these, the most shocking, the proportion of seats held by women in national parliaments in Nigeria. Over the past 10 years, there haven't really been great efforts or great improvements, but the current population percentage of women in parliament in Nigeria is 3.38%. So really, if we're talking about public representation, it's one of the areas where we really need to make lots of improvements. So as a result of all of these issues, Plan International Strategy for Nigeria was developed. Overall, Plan is looking at transforming power relations in favor of girls through improvements to engaging in social norms and behavior change. So we're looking, some of the actions around this are looking at girls' education, facilitating capacity building of girls' rights movements, supporting and facilitating use of social media, to look at education, promotion, mobilization of groups and networks and movements that promote girls' rights. And also looking at capacity building on child protection for media workers, because I think part of the challenge also is how media are portraying issues that are relating to issues that are affecting children. So, and then also, for example, in Niger, Plan, we're really working a lot on trying to reduce early forced and child marriages. And actually, we've also been talking a lot this morning about the coronavirus crisis in Cameroon. The use of media, including regular media, social media, press, and then Facebook, Twitter, and WhatsApp were all used as means to inform general public on efforts around fighting COVID-19. So, but while there have been a lot of initiatives to try and encourage girls to be engaged more offline and online, we really still have a long way to go. I guess maybe just to mention a study that Plan International carried out in the 3 Lake Chad countries over the past few months. It was looking at the role of young people and what the impact of the coronavirus pandemic on them was. One of the things that the youth said was that while they were involved in a lot of the activities and the implementation, there were no specific youth-led activities that they were involved in, and very few women were involved in any substantive way or engaged formally in the activities. So while it's also, I think, one of the reasons why we really need to increase the engagement of young women and girls in this sphere. Also to mention, in April, Plan in Nigeria carried out a Twitter conversation called #GirlsInLockdown, and it was looking at a lot of the issues that were facing young women and girls here in Nigeria during the lockdown. Overall, a lot of the women said that, there were positives and negatives. One of the positives was that one young woman said that it was giving her a chance to do more online courses and improve her skills. But it also meant, like we were saying, the isolation of women from their peers and the possibility of the kind of protection that would have afforded them. Having said all of that, none of the women who participated in the conversation said that they personally had been affected by violence online, but they all knew people who had been. So I think it's just really important for us to keep in mind. So is it possible to share now the slide that I sent, please?
Yes, just give me a second, Marie.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so before I hand over to Manre, who's going to continue, I have one slide. It's a picture that I just want to share. So in April, the government of Nigeria received a medical team from China who had arrived at the airport, and that they were going to help with the coronavirus response here, given that it seemed that the Chinese authorities had responded reasonably well in their own country. So having come home from work one evening, I was just flicking through Twitter and I saw this picture online which said, a 15-man medical team from China has arrived at the airport. And I'm a bit of a stickler for use of gendered and non-gendered language like that. So I just posted on Twitter. I was like, why are you saying a 15-man team when it's very obvious that there are some women in the picture? Why not say a 15-person team? Well, holy moly, for 3 hours, I'd never, I engage a lot on social media, but I never specifically received the backlash that I received after this picture. So in the end, I actually had to mute some of the comments because they were so awful. But it started off with things like, your English teacher will not make heaven. And then it continued. So in fairness, some people were going, oh no, but it's a good question. Why are you laughing? And so then other people were, another one was, man equals human, any issue, question mark. And I'm like going, oh, okay. So anyway, it went on for 3 hours. The notifications kept hundreds. At one point, on one comment, there were like 100 likes, and I was like, this is just ridiculous. So it kept ping, 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 and I was like going, oh my God, I wanted to throw my phone out the window. Anyway, they searched through my profile. There were some questions. They saw my name and they're like, maybe she doesn't actually speak English, so she doesn't understand what she's saying. So then they were like, no, she's Irish. I think she speaks English. But then ultimately, the conclusion of some people, which also got a lot of likes, was that feminism is the cause for sure. So the reason I'm sharing the story, I guess there's loads of online, abuse, and as things go, it wasn't awful. But I think this story, for me, it reflects the abuse that you get online, not just, when you're trying to be yourself, but when you're also trying to challenge the language that people use. Conor mentioned, we said about the words and how important it is the words that we use. But anyway, I eventually removed the comment that I made so that the comments would stop coming and I could look at my phone again. But honestly, young women and girls have the right to be able to discuss issues that are important to them without feeling the need to silence themselves. Thank you. Now I'm going to hand you over to Manre. Manre, over to you, please.
Okay, all right, good morning, everyone. My name is Manre Chirtau. I'm the Youth Engagement and Consultation Advisor for the Lake Chad program here in Nigeria. So I just wanted to start off by just highlighting, the importance of this kind of report. When Anne-Marie and I were preparing for this, we tried to find a little bit more statistics about girls' access and experiences on the internet. And honestly, there's really not much data to be found. Even when there is gendered data, it's mostly focused on women and it's not age disaggregated. So you can't even pull out what the experiences of young women are. And we find ourselves relying mostly on anecdotal evidence because based on what we know about the experiences of women and girls offline, we know that whatever women experience online, it's so much worse for girls online. And so this report, research like this really contributes to that dearth of data. So that's really, really important. So coming back to the Lake Chad region, where a lot of communities are quite conservative and girls tend to be restricted in terms of their movement and having their voice heard, like Anne-Marie had explained in what we found in our research and just general experiences of girls offline. So the internet really offers for them a certain amount of freedom. So when girls first get online, it offers them boundless opportunities to, access information, to build relationships, access resources, services, and of course, to be able to mobilize and speak out about issues that concern them or are important to them. For example, we had in Northern Nigeria the hashtag #ArewaMeToo campaign, which was really young girls coming out young girls specifically from northern Nigeria coming out and speaking about harassment and abuse that they face in their lives. And it was really like a very positive experience for them. They had this opportunity to speak out that they normally would not be able to offline. However, when they tried to take part of their organizing offline, they faced a lot of backlash. There were threats targeting the organizers about what would happen to them if they convened on the streets, including bodily harm and death. So this in itself kind of raises like safety concerns about how girls initially use the internet, especially since the age for accessing internet is becoming lower and lower. So when they first get onto the internet, you know, they engage without necessarily thinking about their safety. And this is due to several factors, right? There's the low digital literacy that they may have and the seeming anonymity of the internet. And so this kind of lures them into thinking that the internet is a safe space where they can speak freely and be their authentic selves. And so the guard that they might have and the caution that they would use to approach strangers offline or interact with strangers offline may not initially be there online until, you know, they start having certain experiences. And that's when you see from the report, they say, oh, they maybe put their profile on private or kind of limit how they're engaging online. But, you know, this is not what we want. You know, they think that it's safe, but we know that basically it's not as safe as they think it is, because the online basically reflects the offline. And you could even say that sometimes like the severity and the mental impact of the online harassment that they face could be more acute than offline, just because people are bolder online. But I think it's important because looking at our context, people's initial reactions might be that, oh, if this is the case, then we need to keep girls offline for as long as possible until we feel they're prepared. But that's not necessarily the case. Internet, again, offers them opportunities to mobilize, access information. And so we do want girls to be online. And as we hold the duty bearers accountable for making the internet safer for girls, it's also important that we empower girls with the skills and services that they might also need to protect themselves online. They need education and resources around digital literacy and online safety so that they're not only able to protect themselves, but when they encounter online harassment, they also know where they need to go or where they can go to access help and services. Whether it's online or offline, that information needs to be available to them. They need services that target their mental health and their well-being. Basically, just as we have offline safe spaces, we also need online safe spaces. And then just to round up, I wanted to, you know, looking at the situation we're in with the pandemic, where more interaction is moving online, education is moving online, organizing and mobilizing is moving online. We need to think about what that means for a significant number of girls in West and Central Africa who are at risk of being further left behind than they already are. What does that mean for girls who live in the Lake Chad region, who already face the additional barrier of infrastructure with, you know, the network being quite poor and having competing needs for survival? How do we not only help them get online so that they're able to access services, education, and also participate? And then how do we also help them to stay safe? So for us, this is some of the things that we've been looking at, how we can, what's the word? How we can draw on the power of technology to be able to give young people, especially adolescent girls and young women, more of a voice. And so we're thinking how we can address this through our EU multi-country project, where we'll be empowering young people, especially adolescent girls and young women, to use technology as a tool to engage with decision makers in evidence-based advocacy. So looking at the issue of infrastructure and access to devices, we'll be creating community computer hubs in all the communities that we work in, where young people will have access to use the computer, but then also supporting them to map the services that they feel are important to them to ensure their safety, their survival, their development, and then using that as the evidence that they can now use to engage with duty bearers and other decision makers in their environment, whether it's the local community leaders, the state governors, or even up to the Lake Chad Basin Commission. So thank you very much for this opportunity to contribute to this conversation. It's really important that we focus more on this issue and that we're able to provide girls with very positive online experiences so that they don't feel like the internet is not necessarily a space where they can engage and again just be their true authentic selves. Thank you very much.
So thank you to Manre and Anne-Marie for their really vital experiences of working with Plan International in Nigeria. So now we are just going to screen a very short video, our call to action and the open letter addressed to social media companies. After that, my fellow Youth Advisory Panel member, Amy Keane, will deliver a short spoken word piece. And then Diana Benucci will take over the reins to host the panel discussion. So let's begin.
Dear Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter, we represent the 14,000 girls from 22 countries who spoke to Plan International about online abuse. We are urgently asking you to work with us to end online harassment on your platforms. We love them. They're a huge part of our daily lives. We use them not just to connect with friends, but to lead and create change. But they are not safe for us. We get harassed and abused on them every single day. We are physically threatened, racially abused, sexually harassed, and body shamed. Online violence is serious. It causes real harm and it's silencing our voices. As this global pandemic moves our lives online, we are more at risk than ever. Did you know that 50% of us face more online harassment than street harassment? And 42% of us lose self-esteem or confidence as a result. Online violence shapes our identity while telling us what's wrong with our identity. Girls are harassed for their ethnicity and race, and girls who identify as LGBTIQ+ are harassed for being themselves. We are told if we can't handle the harassment, we shouldn't be on social media. That's messed up. We shouldn't have to cope and shrink ourselves in an unfair system. The world needs to stop normalizing online violence. We know that many of you are taking steps to make your platforms safer. That's awesome. Thank you. But right now, it's not enough. Girls in all our diversity need to know that when we're abused and threatened online, we can report it and you'll take action. Our practical solution? Be our allies. Speak to us, listen to our experiences. Work with us to create stronger reporting mechanisms for violence that meet girls' needs and hold perpetrators to account. The time to act is now, so girls are free to be online. We'll be waiting for your call.
Hi everyone, so here's the spoken word piece that we put together that kind of relates to the video and for our call. For us, nowhere is safe. We're harassed in the street, then we're harassed online. We cannot run from it. This follows us into our bedrooms. They say they'll find us. They send us naked photos. They say they'll rape us, kill us. We're objectified, blamed, and body shamed. We're abused for our race, our sexuality, and our disabilities. And it doesn't just end when we log off. It doesn't just unplug. Online violence follows us around long after we disconnect. We're left feeling physically unsafe. It crushes our self-esteem. We know this is happening because we are girls. And it gets worse when we raise our voices and share our views. So no, we won't shut up or wear more or wear less. We won't do what they demand us and be quiet. We will no longer say it's normal and just put up with it. For we have the right to be heard. The future is at our fingertips. It's our time to take control. We need everyone to act. Our friends, families, our governments, and our communities, and social media companies. They must use their incredible power and potential to protect us. We need to know that when we're abused, stalked, and threatened online, we can report it, that we will be listened to, that action will be taken and perpetrators will be held to account. But too often we're met with silence. We're calling on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter to create ways to report abuse and harassment that really work. Sign the open letter now and show that thousands of people stand with girls. Are you with us?
Thank you so much, Amy. I'm not sure if Scott is coming back, so I'm just gonna start speaking and say
No,
thank you.
take over from me. They've heard enough of me.
Great, thank you so much, Scott, and thank you again, Amy. As you say, it is the time to start acting. It is the time for people to pay attention, start listening to us, and it's very unfair that our world is so much more different to that of our male counterparts. So, as we have been hearing today and this morning, girls in Ireland and across the world are at extreme risk of abuse and harassment in the online space. 58% of the girls that Plan International spoke to at the global level have experienced it, and the number is bigger again in Ireland, with 67% of young girls and women having experienced harassment online. Our call to action today is directed towards social media companies. Girls are on their platforms, they're on these platforms, and they really want to be there. Social media plays a huge part of their lives. It's a place for self-expression, for community building, for relationship building, for learning, and it should be a place for fun as well. However, it really needs to become a safer place than it is at this moment in time. Girls do not want to leave social media. They very much want to be there, and they have the right to be there. They don't want to feel unsafe. They don't want to feel physically, psychologically, or emotionally abused. They want to be free from exploitation and harassment, and they want to be free to be online. Now, we are delighted today to have three wonderful panelists joining us for a little exploration of what it is like to be a female in the online world. These women are active in the online space. They have used social media to build up a following, and they'll be chatting to us about their experiences. And, you know, they're very active in sharing their beliefs and their interests. Sometimes I suppose bad things happen when they do that. They get, you know, abused for sharing a certain thought or a certain opinion, and it's a shame because they're being suppressed, which is not fair. So I'm very excited to hear from them about their experiences online. Have they been exposed to harassment and abuse? How has social media been a force for good in their lives? And what do they think needs to be done to prevent harassment and abuse from happening to girls and women online? So first up, we have Aoife Moore, originally from Derry City. Aoife has been the political correspondent for the Irish Examiner since February. She is best known for her work on the death of Lyra McKee, Golfgate, and the harassment of female politicians. One of few female political reporters. She carried out the first ever sexual harassment survey in Dáil Éireann and spoke about her own experience about being sexually harassed for the newspaper this year. So just say hello there, Aoife, and then we'll introduce our next panelist, who is Tara Stewart. Tara is a DJ, podcast host, slow fashion lover, and radio presenter of the new music show on RTE 2FM. When she's not gracing the national airwaves on 2FM, Tara can be found DJing at high-profile events, including top festivals like Electric Picnic, Longitude, Forbidden Fruit, or even supporting Cher in the 3 Arena, which is an amazing thing to have done. 2020 saw her become the September cover of 2020 saw her become the September cover of women's magazine Stellar Mag for a sustainable fashion special. Growing up in Australia's outback, Alice Springs, she is born to Irish, Malaysian and Indian parents. In 2011, Tara decided to move to Europe and the UK to further her career and has become a force to be reckoned with on the creative scene. Never one to shy away from speaking her mind, Tara also hosts a slow fashion and sustainable themed podcast called Dirty Laundry. Tara, if you're here, say hello.
Hi.
And last but not least, we've already seen her on screen, is Amy Keane. Amy is a 20-year-old student from County Mayo, currently studying politics and public administration in the University of Limerick. She joined the Youth Advisory Panel in January 2020 after hearing about it from a friend. One of the things she loves most about being a YAP member is the fact that it gives her an opportunity to engage with issues that she is truly passionate about, and she says it opens her eyes to other experiences and perspectives. Now, we've, had a great morning of the report launch. We've heard some shocking statistics. Maybe on one hand they're shocking, maybe on another hand they're not, because we're all women online and we've all, I'm assuming, experienced some form of abuse at some point or another, whether it's, a tiny bit or a massive amount. So I want to start off with speaking about your individual experiences. So Aoife, how has your experience been online? You're a journalist, you often put out, a lot of opinions that some people might not agree with, such as the nature of the online sphere, that it's open to judgment and it's open to people kind of throwing abuse their way or disagreeing with you if they so choose to. So what has been your experience?
Yeah, it's been mixed. I mean, I've definitely received a different kind of abuse that my male colleagues get. So a lot of it is directed. I used to get a lot of stupid 4-letter words, which doesn't bother me as much. I used to get called ugly quite a lot, and then that didn't really seem to bother me, so they changed it to stupid. I think maybe that's because it's more directed at my career. But yeah, it is quite strange, and it comes in variants. No one will be surprised, that the most of the abuse that I get is from men. They tend to be older, depending on the story. They tend to be, I'd say maybe from 40 upwards. The abuse is different, and it takes like different forms. And I know probably people don't really define this as abuse, but I used to get a lot of unsolicited pictures of genitalia when I was first starting in my career, which I don't know if people consider that abuse, but I considered it abusive. Twitter's got a bit better filtering out messages. You get message requests and stuff. I found a different folder a couple of months ago and clicked into it, and it was honestly some of the most revolting stuff I've ever seen in my life, and asking me for pictures and stuff like this. And I'm a political correspondent for a newspaper, so I cannot imagine what it's like for someone who is maybe a model or an influencer or something like that. The worst I think I ever got was over the summer during the George Floyd protests. They had a minute's silence in Dáil Éireann, and I wrote a comment piece about, my point was there's no point having minute's silence if you're not going to listen to people of colour who are telling you what the issues are in the country. That story went up on a Saturday. I was actually in Derry up with seeing my granddad, and by the end of the day I had to delete the app off my phone just because it was a constant barrage of abuse. And this is me as a white person, so I cannot imagine what it would be like for a person of colour, because I had the nerve to talk about racism against people in direct provision or travellers. So stuff like that really seems to get up people's nose. I notice a lot of it as well seems to be, I've written about traveller issues quite a bit before. That seems to be really ticks people off. And also the fact that I'm from Northern Ireland is really, really weaponized against me. You know, it's quite funny, but at times people are like, if you don't like it down here, why don't you go back up to the north? Which is hilarious. So I'm kind of hoping that, you know, my colleague Elaine's from Meath, so maybe they might start telling her that if she doesn't like it in Dublin, she can go back to Meath. But I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah, it's been mixed. I can say that I have received less than some of my other female colleagues. I know one of my colleagues, like really respected journalist Ellen Coyne, has received, you know, barrages of abuse during the abortion referendum. So it seems to be these kinds of like hot button issues is what like starts it. But you do get low level stuff every day, you know, different kinds of abuse. But yeah, I don't think anyone would be surprised by my experience, because I think it's sadly like par for the course, and I'm sure Tara's is the same. But I'd have noticed when it comes to things like traveller rights or racism or abortion or LGBTQ rights, that's the sort of thing that ticks it off. And it seems to be once one starts, it comes like in waves then after it.
It seems, you know, when you put out, I suppose, an opinion, it's natural that people may agree or disagree and want to voice their opinion back. But it's when it gets to a personal level where they're calling you, as you said, horrible names or attacking your persona and your physical being, that's when it just gets a little bit kind of blurred lines and makes no sense. How could a 40-year-old educated man abuse, you know, a woman in her 20s who is simply out there doing her job and trying to provide a voice for people who might not necessarily have one? It's just mind-boggling.
Yeah, I find it incredibly strange. You know, we've talked, like, I think it's part of the like modern discourse now that, you know, most of the people who troll you, who actually put their name to their accounts, usually have like proud dad or loving granda in their Twitter bio. So yeah, I find it so strange. I mean, if I thought for 1 second that my dad was like, he doesn't know how to use computers, but if he did, like if I thought my dad was online sending abuse or, you know, pictures of his genitalia to journalists or celebrities online, like, could you imagine? And like, I think the thing is, what we need to remember is that these people are normal people. You know, I'm sure that their wives and daughters would be incredibly surprised to find out that this is how they conduct themselves online. And I have noticed, and maybe people might say it's like an echo chamber now, but to get around this level of like just abuse and annoyance, I've just started blocking people who are anonymous. If they don't use a real name and if they don't have a real picture, I'm just not going to bother interacting with you. Like, I don't mind people having different political opinions because that's part of my job. Like, I deal with politicians from across the spectrum every day. And I honestly, if you think I'm wrong, that's grand. I think I'm wrong 6 months after I've written something anyway. But I just think there has to be something done about anonymous accounts there, because I can't keep blocking everyone with a fake name and fake picture, because there are literally millions of them.
Tara, how about you? Have you found yourself using the block button many times in your social media travels?
It's my favorite thing to do these days. Like, that button, it gets a lot of work. Especially recently, I found when I'm noticing I get a follow either on Twitter or on Instagram, if I happen to notice in my notifications that they have no profile photo, I'll just click on their profile, and if I see like they're following loads of people and they have no followers, I actually just automatically block them. They might have absolutely no intention of being mean or doing anything, but I'm like, even the fact that your username is like Amy, sorry Amy, you're the first name that came out there, Amy 2165 blah 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 blah, and it's like, well, just use your real name. And even if, I mean, I remember I was getting trolled by someone who just was saying like that I was ugly and stuff. It was just really random stuff, and it didn't bother me, but I kept blocking them. But then they kept starting new accounts. They're like, why are you blocking me? Why are you blocking me? I'm like, why do you think I'm blocking you? Because I don't need this negativity in my life. But then also I said, you're a fake account, and they're like, no, I'm not a fake account. I just don't need loads of pictures and followers and everything. And I was like, well, no, that's, you know, even though you might not be an active member of Instagram, you'll still have a real account, you know, if you are a real person, in my opinion anyway. But yeah, that block button is my favorite thing. But like Aoife said, I mean, you can't catch all of them, you know, it's not like a Pokemon situation where you can catch them all. You really have to, there just needs to be a better system to it. And I don't know if that's necessarily say you have to have your ID or your passport to be able to get an account. Because at the end of the day, I do think, especially now, because social media is changing so much and it's getting bigger and bigger, I don't think anyone expected social media to be so part of our lives, you know, when it started. I do think that there needs to be, it needs to be taken seriously in the level of security and bullying and harassment. And I just don't think it really is taken that seriously right now. It's kind of like, if you have a public platform, get over it.
Absolutely. And I think Laura said that in her speech earlier. It was kind of like expected if you're going to be, you know, in the public eye, well, of course you're going to get harassment. And she was saying, well, why does it have to be that way?
Yeah.
Why should it be a given that it's going to be that way? Why can't I do my thing and you do your thing, and stop? You don't attack me and I don't attack you.
That's like, but that's like saying to someone, oh, if you're walking down the street in public, you should expect people to shout stuff at you as you walk down the street. Like, I would like to think Laura Whitmore, who's incredibly famous and attractive, can walk down the street without people shouting abuse at her. So I don't understand why this is supposed to be par for the course now, that we're supposed to, well, if you're online, you're going to get harassed. That's like saying if you walk outside and people see you in public, you're going to be harassed. It's not good enough.
Well, this is exactly it, Amy. Like, we wouldn't act this way, I would like to think. The majority of these people wouldn't act this way to your face. So why is it they have a power to they feel like they have a power to act this way behind a keyboard or a screen?
I think, to be honest, like, you know, you say people wouldn't say it to your face and everything, and that's so true. Like, they're personal. I know in my experience, you know, because I'm not like a public figure or anything, a lot of like the trolling or the nasty comments and stuff that like my friends would experience, or that like they're people that they know, they're people that maybe they were in school with or go to college with, or, you know, and like they wouldn't come up to them and say it directly to their face, but they'll do it online because they can do it online and type it and say it, and they might never run into them again. So it just feels like a kind of like a safe space. Like, I can wait here and I can say this to them and I will never have to confront them face to face. But I think if you did have to confront someone face to face, you know, a lot of us are afraid of confrontation. We don't like going up to someone and saying, you know, you're ugly or you're stupid. So,
and there's no need. Like, why do you need to even say that? So that's why you wouldn't say it in person, because there really is, like, that's going to change anything by saying, I don't like you. It's like, so what? You know, keep it to yourself.
Yeah, and I think as well, like,
if you have nothing nice to say, don't say it at all, right?
Yeah,
I've been told that.
Yeah. With social media, I think people kind of feel like this bit of power, you know, because if you share like a photo of someone on social media, if you share a video of them, or if you comment on their post, like the rest of the public can see it. So it's like you're like taking your personal vendetta against someone and showing it off to the rest of the world, so that you're hoping that the rest of the world will like see that and kind of jump on the bandwagon with you, you know, whereas if you say it to someone face to face, it just stays between the two of you. Or, you know, like there's no proof. But on social media, like if I call someone ugly or whatever, other people can see those comments and it might get into their heads and they'd be like, oh yeah, like you're whatever, this is wrong, so I think it's just bringing the hate into public is a lot of the reason why people do it on social media.
I've also worried about this. It was something I noticed. I was following one of the girls from Geordie Shore on Instagram randomly, and I've just seen like loads of comments. I think it was Charlotte or whatever, and there was like really, really, really horrible comments about how she looked and like what she looked like, and it was just constant, right? But the difference between Instagram, I think, and Twitter is that on Instagram, it tends to be people's, like as Amy said, their actual accounts, like their actual names. And like these are their normal public accounts, and they're commenting on this famous person, a reality show person's looks and saying, oh, you look terrible or you look fat or whatever. And I remember thinking, if I saw one of my friends commenting on a famous person's Instagram to tell them they were ugly, I would have to take my friend to one side and be like, are you okay?
Yeah.
I mean, there is obviously, I know people say like all trolls are just jealous or trolls aren't happy in their lives, but I'm not going to feel sorry for them just because
Yeah.
they're not happy.
That
because
doesn't
when
make it
they're
okay.
Yeah, when they're telling me that I'm
Yeah.
terrible at my job and ugly and all these different things.
That's not your
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, but I do think there is a lot to be said for the fact that like if you have the time and the mental energy to send grief to someone on social media, you can't be content in your life because you wouldn't be taking great pleasure out of being horrible to someone else. Maybe that's the most like playground way of looking at it. But I do think there's a lot to be said to reaching out to your friends, because as we all know, these are normal people that are doing this. So I think, yeah, just when we were just talking about, you know, people using their public accounts, like if one of your best mates was commenting on someone from TV's looks on their Instagram, like I'd be so worried about my friend. And I think there's a lot of that going on too, like maybe reaching out to one of your mates who is sharing horrible stuff, saying, listen, okay.
I can't remember who said it, but I just remember hearing someone on TV one time and they said, you know, back in the day before social media, if you saw someone on the TV and you thought their outfit was terrible, you know, you might say it in your sitting room amongst your family. You might say, oh God, why did she wear that or whatever? But it would never get to the person. But now people feel like they have to like personally tell them instead of just saying it maybe to one other person, keeping it there and then forgetting about it. It's like people aren't satisfied with that anymore. It needs to be more vicious and more public, and you know.
Yeah, I think just like if you have something bad to say about someone, because I get it, everyone loves to have their opinion and bitch about people. That's who we are, you know, we're all social humans. But send it to your friend in your WhatsApp group, you know, that keep it there, then nip it, like have your little vent done. There's no need to take it to the next level. And I mean, I don't know if anyone's seen a particular website that's like a basically a forum to kind of, you know, give opinions about public people in the UK and in Ireland. And it's obviously not going to be nice comments. It's like, oh my God, how cute was her dress? No one's saying lovely things. They're saying how ugly was her dress. Look at the state of her mothering. Look at this. And it's literally a forum set up to, you know, bitch about women. And people check in on it daily. They, you know, in the morning with their coffee, they go and have a look at the forum and see what's been said. And it's just baffling to me that people can just spend that so much energy doing that. I'm like, why don't you just talk to your why don't you, you know, say to your boyfriend, oh my God, state of your one last night? Or why don't you say it to, you know, your friend? I think I just honestly, just the idea of being able to post something publicly to then, I mean, the thing is, people must realize that that ruins your day. Like, I know when I get a mean comment, I don't brush it off. It still really affects me, and it really upsets me. And I will then forever think about that one comment every now and then feel self-conscious for a couple of hours or a day maybe. And I just don't think people realize how damaging it really is.
Yeah. There's been a number of really high profile social media influencers in the last few months alone who actually have had horrible things happen to them. You know, for example, the girl who had cancer and wasn't able to have children, who had baby clothes sent to her house as like a spiteful thing. You know, there was one of the social media influencers she was expecting her second baby, and there was horrible stuff said about her, possibly on the same forum you were talking about, Tara, about how, you know, accusing her of being a pedophile. Like, why would you go to that level and say such? And
even Chrissy Teigen,
your children as well. Like, even Chrissy Teigen. Why would anyone go to that level and say such destructive things that will not only obviously really hurt this person, but it's defamatory. It's putting something out there that simply isn't true. Do you have to prove? Absolutely not. It's an opinion that's you know, a horrible thing to put out into the sphere. And as you say, you can see a million great comments. You see the one bad one and it sticks with you. And it really depends, I suppose, on your mood that day as well, because one day you could be strong enough to brush it off. But if you've had a really bad day and this bad comment comes your way, it can really destroy you.
Totally.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing as well. Like, you know I'm still, you know, quite young or whatever, but like in comparison to someone who's maybe 13, 14, 15, you know, I've had a little bit of life that I've lived, a small bit, but like I've built up that little bit of toughness, that little bit of perspective. You know, if I see something, I'm able to like put it box it away and just kind of think about it. But you know, if you're 13, 14, 15 and you see that, like, it could literally crush you and just, you know, leave your whole self-esteem just gone. Like, I worry, like, my sister is 12 now, and like everything is going to be online for her. And I just think if you're growing up with that constant, like, you know, social media and the fact that people could be saying things nasty to you online, like, it couldn't be good for you. You're never going to build that resilience to be able to brush it off.
Well, I see it on TikTok, and it's really, it's funny. I feel like TikTok's like the love child of like Instagram, Vine, and Twitter, because you've got visual video content, and I love TikTok for the creativity. I think it's really, really great for that kind of stuff. But I just, the comments, like, people comment like they tweet, you know, they reply thinking, oh, they're probably not going to see this. Maybe they don't care that the person's going to see it. But I think TikTok is something that definitely, like, I'm very grateful that I didn't grow up with social media. Like, but I do really feel sorry for teenagers who have to deal with that, especially right now with schooling and living most of your life online. And you're seeing so many people getting such a huge following on TikTok as well. So many more people are seeing them than what would normally see them if they were not online. So I think that's something that definitely needs to be, I don't know, looked at, kept an eye on.
Yeah, I think the wider issue as well is probably, you know, the issue of trolling and commenting on people's appearances is also fed by social media. So like, going on Instagram now, like, I am someone who used to be a bit heavier and then got really into fitness, and then got to a point where I was like totally obsessed. And I noticed that this like fed into my Instagram feed as well. So like, I was following, like, we've all seen them, those like fitness models who live in Australia and Brisbane, and they look like they're like aliens from like how they look like this day to day is unbelievable. But the thing is, like, it's not realistic. And we know with celebrities and stuff, it's all airbrushed, like, it's all photoshopped. Like that old saying of like, the girl in the magazine doesn't look like the girl in the magazine. That's so true of Instagram now. And I feel like young girls especially, but young boys as well, are seeing these photographs and thinking, this is what I need to look like. And they're being fed this totally abstract version of reality and what people are supposed to look like. And I think then when they see someone like Molly May from Love Island was trolled when she was in Ibiza because people said she was fat. This girl is like a size 8. Gorgeous. And she was in her bikini and she just looked like a totally normal, small, petite, gorgeous girl. And people were commenting, being like, you know, you need to go to the gym, you're getting flabby, stuff like this. And I genuinely believe it's because we are fed this image of like perfection, what people are supposed to look like. And young people, especially younger than say 14, 15, don't understand that like everyone looks different, and the people on Instagram are the abnormal people, and everyone else is what we're supposed to look like, because it's nigh on impossible for most people to look like those fitness models. And I think that feeds into the trolling, because they've lost kind of all sense of like what people are supposed to look like. And I think it must be so horrific on their self-esteem to not know that when you're looking at Kylie Jenner or all these different people, that's not actually what they look like. And you would be pretty shocked if you saw them in real life, because that's not what they look like. And then that feeds insecurity, which feeds the kind of need to troll people and make them feel worse because you feel bad. So I feel like it's a vicious circle. Do you know what I mean? Like they're seeing this, then that's making them feel worse, which is making them want to abuse other people. So I think there's definitely, Instagram and Twitter are very different beasts. I think when it comes to abuse, you know, with Instagram, it's a lot more image based because it's an image based profile.
I don't
go on.
I don't know if this is a bad idea or not. And so maybe me saying, I'm like, should I say it? But you know, obviously when an influencer, like say when I do like paid content, I have to disclose that it's an ad. You have to say hashtag spawn or hashtag ad or paid in partnership at the top of the Instagram. And I don't know, it's an idea. I've thought that it would be a good idea to have to disclose if a picture has been edited, and you know, that you have to say that this picture was edited, you know, in some way. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think, I was talking about it with my mom, actually. I was saying, she grew up in whatever, the 80s or the early 90s. And, when they saw celebrities who were, skinny and well done up and everything, it was always just in like a movie or at a premiere, or they were on stage or something. So they were able to differentiate that, like, that was not how they look in real life. Like, that is how they look because they're famous and they're doing something that famous people do. Whereas now with the influencers and even like celebrities, we see every single part of their days online. So we see them like first thing when they get up and have a coffee and they look flawless. And we see them when they're going to bed and they still look flawless. And like, that really has to make people think that like, oh, they look like that all of the time. Like, that's how I should look when I wake up, and that's how I should look when I'm going to the gym. And on top of that, everybody now is becoming an Instagram celebrity. Everybody is editing their photos and doing their makeup and vlogging their bougie life, even though it mightn't be that way. And there's no distinction now anymore between what is a celebrity that's had a whole glam squad put into getting her ready to take a picture with her coffee, and like what's just normal life. Like, it's completely changed because we're so immersed in everybody's life every single day, but it's not their real life, it's like filtered.
Yeah, you showed the best bits of your life
at
the end of the day. But I think it is becoming a little bit more transparent. I think there are people who are kind of taking the other stance of like, this is actually me. I walk around with no makeup most. Like Chrissy Teigen, yes, she'll put on a filter, but you do see her kind of lounging around at home with in her amazing mansion, but with no makeup, with her kids, or sick in bed, and she's posting kind of the less glossy side of her life, especially now in recent times, with the loss of her baby. So I feel like there are people with a high platform that are doing that more and more, but it is still kind of blurred lines for young people, because in the report, I think girls as young as 8 globally are experiencing harassment online. Like, when you're 8 years old, what do you know about the world? You kind of take what's presented to you. So if this is what you're seeing, this is what you're going to think is the norm. So is it a matter of, as much as we love filters and we love having fun with them, perhaps should social media platforms take them away completely so that we can all be equal? I really don't know. It's a really hard one to, I suppose, figure out, but hopefully people will listen to this call for action, and when people sign the letters, social media platforms will make a move and make some drastic measures. It's taken horrific things to happen for the government to actually take action and introduce Coco's law, or like even with Lisa McHugh currently, last month in the High Court, with Facebook now having to provide the information for people of accounts who were saying defamatory things about her and who were threatening her. So it just seems very sad that drastic things have to happen for people to take action. But I suppose it's always been this way, but perhaps we can prevent things from continuing to happen by doing something drastic now.
Yeah. And I think it shouldn't have gotten, to the point where, like the story behind Coco's law, I was watching the video of her mother outside Leinster House, and it was just heartbreaking. Like, I was crying, like in the car in tears, but like, it shouldn't have taken till now, because there's been so many people before that. I even remember back in the days of Ask FM, and there was the girl in Donegal that took her life because of Ask FM, and then there was someone else after that, and someone else after that, and like, it shouldn't have taken that long. Social media, while it's new, it's not brand new. It's been around since like MySpace and Bebo, and trolls have been around since then. So why has it taken so many tragedies to make some sort of an action? And as well, it kind of puts out that message that like, oh, it has to get to that super bad stage where you're completely depressed and don't want to leave the house before it's valid enough to report it. We really should emphasize that every time you're made feel uncomfortable, or you feel unsafe, or you feel like something isn't right, then you should report it. Like, every single incident is valid.
Yeah, and I think just on the wider kind of consequences of stuff like this obviously is something that comes up in my job quite a lot. But my major concern is that women will not put themselves forward for election and will not stand up in different community roles because they will see what's happening on social media to other female politicians and go, what is the point?
Yeah.
You know, we've had female TDs who've been like threatened with rape and murder, and they've gone to the Gardaí and very little has been done because, you know, all these different rules over anonymity on Twitter and how hard it is to get IP addresses and stuff. And my real concern is like, we already don't have enough women in public life. And if we allow this to run rampant, more and more girls will just say, what is the point in this? You know, you don't get, you know, it's a pretty, being a politician is a pretty thankless job anyway, whether you agree with it or not. But, you know, trying to do the job and also knowing that you're going to get this barrage of grief every day, no matter what you do. You know, politics is one of those things where most people are going to disagree with you because that's the nature of the job. But like, I just don't think there's any other career where, you know, I actually did a story and we were talking about death threats to female politicians. And I know like Mary Lou McDonald has been open about, you know, she's had to go to the Gardaí and stuff. And a man, replied to the story and was like, but surely that's just par for the course and should be expected these days because they're so bad at their jobs. And I just don't think there's any other job in the world where you should expect to be threatened to be killed. I mean, unless like you're a bodyguard, I just don't understand why, you know, this is, you know, par for the course and this get over it because you chose to be in the public eye. It's like, yeah, I chose to have pretty public discourse and debate with other people. I didn't want my children or my life to be threatened by an anonymous Twitter person. And I think, you know, it will affect young people's confidence, young girls' confidence going forward. And they're not, maybe it's not politics, but it could be something else. I mean, everyone here, I'm sure, and everyone watching remembers the time when someone said something to them when they were really young and it knocked their confidence. Like when I was about 8, another girl in my class called me fat, and I have always, like, it's just one of those things that I haven't forgotten about. But imagine 100 people get to call you fat anonymously when you're 10 years old. Like, I can't imagine the toll that would take. And then if you could be a really young, carefree youngster and one terrible week-long experience with social media will affect you for the rest of your life, and maybe you'll think, I don't really want to go to university, I don't really want to put myself forward for that job. And there's a lot more consequences. So I know the government are doing bits and pieces and these small incremental changes so that it doesn't happen, you know, after Coco's Law, like no one wants anyone to take their own life. But I feel like there are a lot more wider consequences as well that we're not talking about. And we're going to pay the price in the future with our young people.
Definitely. And I feel
100%.
like with social media companies, they could perhaps work on a different type of campaign, which is, I know that I haven't actually done it personally myself, but I know that you can key in certain words so that if someone sends a comment using these certain words, like it just won't appear, like they're not allowed to post it, or it just won't appear on your page. So maybe they need to run a campaign on kind of that level to promote the fact that you can do this. So if you don't want to see this stuff, there are actions you can take beyond the block button, where you can modify your various social media pages so that you're not seeing these words come your way. Even if someone is in their bedroom kind of knocking them out, you don't actually get to interact with them.
I think there's a lot
to another thing they could do.
I think there's a lot to be said for that. Just to add, my friend Zara King is a journalist with Virgin Media, and she told me that she's muted so many people on Twitter now that like her Twitter is this really lovely place. She was saying that she posted a photo recently of her and Richard Chambers, who also works for Virgin Media, and they live together. And Richard had said, oh my God, did you see all those like horrible comments under that photograph? And she was like, no, because he has muted so many like horrible accounts that she was like, I just don't want to give them any space in my brain. So she's just muted so many people that like most of her social media discourse is quite nice now, but it's got to the point where she has to do that. And also people say, oh, she's on TV or whatever, but you don't ask for that. Like you should be critiquing her on her work if you don't think, you know, she's good enough at her job or she's asking the right questions, not what she looks like and what, you know, and like how her abilities to ask questions. Like, I think, it shouldn't get to the point where we have to be muting half of Twitter in order to have the mental capacity to do our jobs.
I know we're kind of focusing on the negative sides of social media, but I'm sure for your own individual kind of platforms and careers, it has proved to be a positive space as well. I'm sure not everything you post gets negative comments thrown your way. So like, I mean, Tara, for you to build up your platform, Aoife, for you to, I suppose, share your work, and then Amy, for you to get like your opinions across and talk about things that you're passionate about. It is a positive space, for the most part, but there is this horrible negative side to it that we should try to eliminate. But can we talk a little bit about kind of the positive sides to it and how it has helped you guys in your own spaces and in your own lives? Aoife.
Oh, I was going to let Tara go because I talked a lot in the last one.
Amy, we'll give Aoife a break though.
I think like, especially recently, so like before this, I kind of was just using it on like a personal level, but after getting kind of more involved with Plan and a few other like organizations and causes and stuff, it has been super to like share stuff on social media and to open it up kind of to a bigger audience. So like, even I have friends watching this conference at the moment that like, if I hadn't shared it on my social media, they would have never known. Like, it would have never been in their sphere. And like, it's been a good place to just share what I'm doing, share what I'm passionate about, and just to kind of just to put it out there, like where I'm going and what I'm involved in,
and find a community of like-minded people as well.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely, it's been great for that. And like, even you find a like-minded community of people where you see someone has tagged an organization or a cause that they're involved with, and then you can go into that page and then you get involved yourself, or like just getting to connect with different people and see what their experiences have been. And so it's been a really good space in that aspect.
And Tara, how about for you? I know that social media kind of has been huge in helping build up your profile and of course promoting your work that you do with like your podcasts on radio, DJing and so on.
Yeah, it's great. Like to be honest, I didn't really, it's funny, like I used to not really take it that seriously from like I was just like, oh yeah, I just want to post nice things, whatever. And then obviously like, well, I'm a DJ and obviously do radio, and then I have my podcast, but I haven't DJ'd this year because of COVID since February. So, that's been a bit of a game changer for me. And so I've kind of started to take social media a bit more seriously to kind of promote myself and to promote my podcast. And also just to, I've been more like considered about what I'm posting now, because I just want to, I'm sharing more about sustainability, charity shops, all that kind of stuff, because it's so handy because it can be used as a business, and I use it as a business tool. And, I make money from Instagram. So I didn't really take that seriously before, even though I did make money from Instagram, like say last year, for example. This year I was like, no, actually, if I want to produce like good content, because I want to be able to make more money from it. I'm like, what's the harm in trying to build a following and having it as like a really handy income. And so I think people don't take like, say, advertisements and all that kind of stuff seriously on social media. Say people that aren't really connected to Instagram, they're kind of like, oh, it's just a bit stupid. But that stuff does work, that there's a reason why I hate the word, but there's a reason why they're called influencers, because they do influence people to say buy things or to try new things or whatever. So I definitely have used it to my advantage. I had the same relationship with TikTok when I got into TikTok at the start of lockdown. I was like, no, I am not into this. I hate it so much. And then eventually I just kind of immersed myself in it. I was like, you know what, I'm going to try and see what this is about. And now again, I'm using it to my advantage to build a platform just to make just to kind of build a really lovely community. I have a great community on my Instagram as well. Like I'm really lucky that I don't get that much hate on my Instagram. Mostly it's on Twitter, to be honest. And I kind of I don't really tweet that much of my opinion anymore, because I'm just like, I don't have the emotional capacity to have to cope with it, especially after this year. But yeah, I love social media and I love using it for my advantage. I mean, in terms of last year when I was DJing, I used to just use it to post all my DJing bits to, lure in future possible clients. So this year, because I don't have that, I've kind of just changed the way I would use it. But it can be such a brilliant tool to find like-minded people. And honestly, sorry, I know I'm going on about this a lot, but it's kind of weird, like recently over the last month I've gotten connected with amazing people that are into the same things as me in terms of sustainability, charity shopping, pre-loved, and all this kind of stuff in like Australia, the UK, America, and I'm starting to get really connected with them. And I've been it's kind of, I feel like because our lives are really online so much more than ever now because of everything, because we can't go out and network at an event, we can't go and network at a party. So I'm kind of doing that more online now, which is something I kind of used to do on Facebook years and years ago, back when Facebook was cool, back in my day. So yeah, I love social media for that way to get connected with people. When you actually do use it for what it is meant to be, a social platform, it can be really, really great.
And it's just the pity that not every person out there has that equal opportunity to use it to build themselves and express themselves in the way they want to without coming their way. But there are many positives to it, and if the social media companies work with us, then everyone can have an equal experience, I think, at the end of the day. Aoife, how about you? How has social media kind of helped your career and your experience?
Yeah, I mean, it's been like invaluable for me. Like, we all know that newspapers aren't, playing the prominence in people's lives that they were 10, 20 years ago. So social media for me, especially promoting my work, and even before I was at the Examiner, I was at Press Association, which is an agency. So, your work would be put across like a number of different titles, but through like Twitter especially, Facebook doesn't really work for journalists, to be honest, but Twitter especially, for using to promote your work. And I do think Twitter and as a whole social media gives voices to people who might not have such a public voice. And I think it's been so essential for me. And I can't speak for all our political correspondents, I don't know if this is how they do it, but even when the government might announce something or a political party might announce something, there are always going to be people who are going to tweet about how this will affect their life, and that should inform how you report on it, and that informs the questions that you're going to ask, because it's probably an experience that, say, I would never have. Just for an example, if there was something announced about first-time home buyers or single mothers, I'm not either of those things.
Yeah.
And I think, people will say, well, what about this? What about this? I do think there's a lot to be said for giving people, a public voice to talk about how politics affects them. Because the way I see my job, politics is very much about people, because everything that they decide affects some of us or all of us. So I do think that has basically, it's like Twitter has opened up me, and I follow a lot of people that I might not meet in my day-to-day life. I live in Dublin City, but I follow lots of people who live in rural communities with bad transport links, those kinds of things. So I think, yeah, that's been totally invaluable. And I do think as well, it does build up your support network. I mean, there are certain people then you meet contacts through different social media. I think groups have been really important for, there's different groups for like single mothers or single fathers or traveler people. And I think giving people that sense of community who mightn't have been able to do it, especially in COVID, who can't leave the house and then are able to connect with each other. I mean, we know the Facebook groups have not covered themselves in glory in the last couple of years, but I do think there's a lot to be said for giving people a sense of connectivity. And I think with Twitter is basically the driving force behind most stories online now. I know for the Examiner, with Golfgate, all that, a lot of that came from Twitter traffic, and as much as it has massive amount of problems, it has really helped to raise up people's voices who probably wouldn't have had a public voice before, and promote good quality journalism. Don't get me wrong, it promotes fake news as well, but it definitely helps newspapers as we try and navigate this change and the digital first and digital only, as a lot of papers are going now. So I think, yeah, it's been invaluable to me. Like, Twitter's definitely helped my career. There's no doubt about it. But like everything else, there's pros and cons. So far, I can say the pros are more, but the more well-known my work gets, the cons go up.
Get higher. Oh dear. Okay, so as I think we'll wrap up. So as a final kind of input or insight into the whole issue, what should social media platforms and companies do? What's the one thing in your eyes that is critical for them to kind of change? Whether it's making the block button easier to use, whether it's promoting a campaign about, you know, that you can actually filter the comments that come in so that you don't see them at all. What do you think these guys should do to make our experiences and young girls' experiences a more positive one overall?
I think fake accounts need to be monitored better. I think it's just too easy to, I know like right now I could go and start a new email, start a new fake account within a few minutes. So I think that definitely needs to, you also, I think you need to have like, obviously I know people want privacy online, but there needs to be a middle ground there where you say your username, if your username has loads and loads of random numbers at the end, I think even you need to show your ID. I think that someone did comment in the chat here that is done somewhere else where you have to show your ID on your passport. And so I was going to say on one hand, maybe this should be your profile photo should be you, but at the same time, I know people want privacy. So I think your ID and passport should be something that is definitely uploaded. And once you've used it once, then that's like, I think it needs to be harder to start an account, basically. That's what I mean.
And then you can be held accountable for trash that you're putting out online, using people.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Aoife, what do you reckon?
I think what Twitter especially needs to do, they've already done, and I think they kind of told on themselves last week when Donald Trump got coronavirus. Twitter released a statement saying that they would be limiting the tweets that were wishing harm on Donald Trump and his family, but yet have never, ever, ever done that for the thousands and thousands of death threats that people get online every single day. I think it was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ilhan Omar came out and said, "Oh, this is great, but are you going to do it for everyone else?" So they basically told on themselves and said they do have the ability to do it when it's Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is a user of Twitter, like everyone else is a user of Twitter. And I feel like if you're claiming that it can't be done, don't do it at all. And I think the filters for abuse, we've seen this on Facebook, you know, they subcontract out these contracts to monitor Facebook comments. And I have seen the most, you know, someone was banned from Facebook for saying men are trash, but then someone in comparison to a man threatening a woman with rape wasn't taken off Facebook. There needs to be serious examination about the standards and guidelines and who is monitoring them, because they're not monitoring them properly. We saw what happened in Kenosha when there was a call to arms during a Black Lives Matter protest, and some 17-year-old drove through with a couple of guns and shot people. So we know that the reviews aren't working, the guidelines aren't working, and if they're really serious about safety, which I don't think they are, you know, they've already demonstrated that they can make these changes, they just haven't.
Yeah, and why should someone like Donald Trump, who already has so much protection around him, get further protection when it's actually the everyday vulnerable people that need it most? Okay, and Amy, finally.
Yeah, I think they're both two amazing mechanisms like that social media companies could, like, you know, as you said, they have the ability to do it, you know. But I think then as well, like, knowledge is power, you know, and I think we need to start upgrading curriculums around safety online and protecting yourself online and being able to block people and mute people, because at the moment they're horrendously outdated, like in schools and in youth groups and stuff. And then, you know, we probably need to start it a bit younger. You know, you probably cannot wait until TY or Leaving Cert to learn, you know, how to protect yourself online or how to deal with negative comments, and as well just educate people on like being a decent human on the internet, you know, about thinking before you post, and then just giving people the power to hit that mute button or the block button or report something to the guards or report it to Facebook, you know. So I think that would be really important, just a major overhaul on the knowledge that young people are getting and when they're getting it as well.
100%. I'm actually shocked that it's left until transition year in this day
to
educate young people.
Transition year or fifth year or Leaving Cert. Like, my sister is in Leaving Cert at the moment, and like, she only got a talk last year in fifth year. Like, she had been on Snapchat since before she went into first year, and they were only talking about it in fifth year. Like, you know, it's just sometimes it's a little bit too little too late, and kids just have to figure it out for themselves then. And I think if they were better equipped with skills before they kind of were thrown into the deep end, they might have a better resilience for, you know, reporting it and blocking people and muting people, and, you know,
and being able to differentiate, this is a nice person who's talking trash, and we do not listen to them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Especially because kids as young as, like, what, in 5th and 6th class are getting their first phones, which to me seems ridiculous. But while they, you know, they don't all have access to being online, but some of them do, as we found out from this report. So 100%, it should be something that's implemented into the school system from a very young age, especially going forward when we're getting younger and younger. When we're getting online.
And everything's going online. So, you know, and like, we're not going to completely eradicate online harassment overnight or even in a month or a year. So we might as well fight the fire while we're trying to stop the causes, I suppose.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for all your contributions and for your insights and sharing your own personal kind of experiences and takes on this whole thing. Happy International Day of the Girl for the 11th. And thank you for being part of a really important conversation, which will hopefully lead to some great changes, both here in Ireland and on a global platform as well. So Aoife, Amy, Tara, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
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 So I'm back just to do a quick wrap up. So thank you again to all the panelists. It was amazing to hear their perspectives on things. Some really interesting discussions taking place. So just to finish up, so thank you to everyone for joining us. Thank you to the speakers who gave so generously their time and insights to be here with us today. And thank you to all the supporters who've tuned in. The recordings of the event will be available on our YouTube channel and social media platforms. You can visit www.plan.ie to see all of the research we spoke about today and to sign on for open letter calling for our social media companies to take action to protect girls on their platforms and hold perpetrators of abuse accountable. So I hope you've enjoyed today's event. It's been amazing to hear from everyone, and we will see you soon.